This is Sue Pyper, and you're listening to Retrospectives with John BRoughton on 3SER KC Radio.
I'm chasing taillights in the rain, but to the floor, blinded father.
I have ages.
Just to begin, you pretty much had your heart set on a music career from a young age, didn't you?
Yeah, it took me a while to get there, though. I was listening to... Oh, I'm getting all sorts of feedback now. I listened to John Denver on the radio and decided that that was what I wanted to do, and it just took me a long while to get there.
Uh-huh. So your first interest in music was listening to artists like John Denver?
Yeah, while all my friends were listening to sort of trendier music, like the Osmonds and Bay City Rollers and things like that, I was listening to John Denver and Joni Mitchell and all those kind of performers. So I was kind of a strange little kid.
But yours wasn't a particularly musical family, though, was it?
No, actually, I'm the only musician in the family that I know of. And although my mum is Scottish, she loves to sing and loves listening to music, but nobody else in the family actually, plays or does anything professionally.
Tell us about your early career away from music. You were involved in areas of photography and design.
That's right, and I still do a bit of design now. I actually, one of the benefits is I get to design my own CD cover. So that's always good as an artist to have those skills. But yeah, I worked in London and I worked for lots of larger companies and did marketing and communications and things, photography. So all of those have come into good use. Now I'm a musician.
So during those years, did you still deep down harbour musical ambitions?
I always played music. I always was playing, and I was playing some small gigs in London sort of in my spare time. And I did at one point have a little band called Out of Our Trio with two friends of mine, and we used to play gigs around in London. But it was really only when I moved to Canada that it sort of started to really take off.
It must have been a huge decision at the time to walk away from that guaranteed paycheck working for major companies and step into the unknown world of music.
Well, yeah, I mean, every musician has to be pretty creative, and as I said, being a designer, I can always fall back on that as well. But moving to Canada and within a very short space of time making my first CD, and it was quite an exciting time, I have to say.
Reading about you on your website, I noticed mention of a place called Fiddlehead Farm, which I believe had a profound effect on you. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, Fiddlehead Farm really was the place that was responsible for getting me staying in Canada, I guess. I was backpacking here. I took a year out and was backpacking across Canada, and from the UK. I was still there then, and found this place called Fiddlehead Farm, which was a remote self-contained farm that was organic, and they milked their own cows and everything. But it was also an affiliated youth hostel, so people could go there from all over the world, from Australia and Europe and America, and could go up and stay and work and do chores and things like that. And it was quite a special place.
You mentioned Out of Our Trio, your first band. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I was playing actually in a restaurant in London, and this guy came up to me and he said, "Oh, if you ever need a bass player, I'd love to sort of play music with you." So we exchanged contact information, and as he said, bass players need other people to play with, so he was really good at getting gigs. And then he had another friend of his who was a lead guitarist, and we kind of went into our little band and did little corporate gigs at pubs and things.
Was it original material, or you were basically doing covers, or?
It was mostly covers at that time. The London music scene is not really into much originality, I have to say. So we'd do a lot of covers and the odd original, but mostly cover songs.
So when you made the decision to leave England for Canada, was there much toing and froing about whether or not it was the right thing to do? Was it a tough decision to make?
No, it wasn't a tough decision at all. I ever since when I took a year off and then went home, I just knew that I should be here. So that's what it did. It took me a long while to emigrate, but once I emigrated, I've never looked back.
Did you find it a welcoming musical community when you got there?
Oh, amazing musical community. I live in a place called the Comox Valley on Vancouver Island, and the level of musicianship here is absolutely astounding. We have a big music festival here every summer that brings in all sorts of people from all over the world, and a lot of musicians come to the festival and then decide they like it here so much that they just stay. So we really do have an amazing caliber of musicians here.
It must have been a wonderful feeling to finally get that first CD out there, a childhood dream realised, I guess, and the response to it was fantastic. Was it all a bit overwhelming at the time?
Well, it was, because I mean it was all a little accidental. I ran into I just met a guy in a pub, actually, Rodrigo, who's now a good friend of mine, who is a Chilean amazing Chilean guitar player, and he was the one that suggested I do the CD, and I thought, oh, I don't think I can, and who'd listen to it, kind of thing, and so he was the one that was the big instigator of me moving forward with it, and he produced the CD, and when it came out, it had a fantastic response, and it was quite gratifying.
Now, of course, we haven't had the pleasure of seeing you in concert down here in Australia, but I believe, reading about you, there's a good element of humour in your live performances. Is that particularly important to you, to not take it all too seriously?
Oh, I love to have fun. I mean, and I got into trouble quite a bit when I moved to Canada, because the Canadians tend to have a gentler sense of humour than the British, and probably the Australians. And so I had to really think carefully about what I was saying. But now I'm sort of bilingual in the humour department, so I can joke in Canadian and English.
There's a nice balance on your CDs of your own material and songs that you've covered. What do you look for in a song to make it one that you're happy to have alongside your own work?
Well, it's funny, because early on I never really considered myself a songwriter, so I was more comfortable doing other people's songs than I was my own, and as time's gone on, the songwriting has sort of developed and taken over a little bit, but I just love singing songs, and any song that resonates with me emotionally is a song that I'm happy to sing.
You've received some great support from contemporaries, such as Christine Lavin, and even our own Josh Cunningham from the Waifs has been singing your praises.
That's right.
Yeah, it must be a great boost to the confidence to have that stamp of approval from your contemporaries.
Yeah, it was, and I was the meeting with Christine Lavin was just great, because she came to the festival here at the Vancouver Island Music Fest, and I had been a fan of hers for years and actually performed some of her songs in my live shows, and so I met her there and gave her a copy of my CD, and she rang me the next day and said, can we meet for lunch? So we went out for lunch, and she was a great help in promoting the CD to various places on the East Coast in New York.
Oh, that's fantastic. She has a history she has a history of championing the causes of other singer-songwriters. She really does. She's great like that.
Oh, she's incredible, and she's so giving. So many performers are very protective about, sharing things, and yet she regularly promotes people in her shows and promotes people that they might not necessarily get to hear for various reasons, and so it's incredible.
Now, another project you're involved with is Voices 3. Tell us about that.
Well, Voices 3 was thought up by, there's a performer that's also originally from the UK, Helen Austin, and Judy Wing, and we decided that we wanted to do a show that sort of showcased female singer-songwriters, but we also decided that we wanted to do it to benefit a charity, so we chose the Hospice Society because they do such amazing work, and we rented the big theatre here in town, which is a beautiful venue, and we took a big chance because we thought, well, we weren't sure anybody would come out and see us, and the first show was almost sold out, and the next two were completely sold out, and if you get two Brits, one who's an ex-stand-up comedian, which is Helen, and me, and Judy has a pretty quirky sense of humour, and I think people were quite surprised at how much fun and laughter there was in the show.
And it was actually originally only intended to be a one-off situation.
That's correct. Yeah, we thought, well, we'll just give it a go, and then we had such a great response. Everybody said, well, you have to do it again next year, and then the next year everybody says, well, you have to do it again next year. So we we ended up doing it 3 years in a row, and having an absolute hoot.
I saw on the website your list of phobias are you listed as harmony singing one of your major phobias?
That's right. Being mostly singing lead, I hadn't had much experience singing harmony, and so it used to terrify me. But now, since I've been singing with Voices 3, I'm fine now. But it was a pretty big phobia.
What do you think's the key to good harmony singing?
Listening, really, I guess. I think you need to develop that ear to hear alternatives, but listening to how people pronounce things is a biggie. Trying to match their phrasing and all that kind of stuff that really makes harmonies sort of work really well.
So, is there any possibility of studio recordings with that outfit?
Probably not at this stage. We're actually, Voices 3 are taking a little bit of a break, but we did have a live recording that we did from one of the shows that we released. But as far as a studio recording, that's probably not going to happen, at least not imminently.
Now, outside of music, you mentioned before you're running your own business there as well, Imagination Design?
That's right.
Tell us about the work you do there.
Well, it's great because I get to work with a lot of musicians, and because I'm a musician myself, I do a lot of work with musicians on their websites and press kits and CD cover designs and all that kind of stuff. So it's really a nice complement to doing the music, and picks up the slack.
So have you managed to master the art of time management with devoting appropriate times to both your business and your own music as well?
It's tough to balance sometimes because, sometimes I just want to focus on the music and I have to, focus on other things. But it seems to work pretty well. And because, a lot of the work I do is music related, even though it's not my music, it's working with other people and helping them promote their music. It's all sort of interrelated.
And just before I let you go, Sue, what's coming up for you? What are your upcoming plans?
Well, obviously the new CD is just out, so that's been the focus. We're just planning some concert series to promote that, so that's kind of exciting. And that took me 6 years to get my second CD out, because the first one won some awards, so it was a pretty tough act to follow.
Yeah.
And so I'm promoting the new CD, and I'm having quite a lot of fun on YouTube promoting and doing videos of songs. So that's become a little bit of an addiction for me as well.
I've seen a couple of those. They're not bad at all. And touring-wise, you're just staying within Canada, or do you step over the border from time to time?
Yeah, I've been to the States and done some shows there. A couple of years ago, I was hoping actually to get over to Australia, but it sort of didn't seem to work. I have friends and family there, and I thought it would be kind of cool to do some gigs and do a trip at the same time. But it hasn't, scheduling-wise, hasn't worked out that way quite yet.
Actually, this is the time of year to be down here. Our folk festival season is basically February through to about April. And a lot of singer-songwriters come out here and just work their way around the country for a couple of months.
Hey, that sounds like a plan.
That sounds like a plan. Hey, so great to catch up with you.
Well, thanks for contacting me. It's great to talk to you. And I hope that your show keeps doing very well.
I certainly hope so, and hopefully you'll be down here for a tour one day and we can get you live in the studio to do some stuff for us. That'd be great.
That would be great. Thanks a lot, John.
Thanks, Sue. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.